An energy pyramid shows the flow of energy from one trophic level to the next in an ecosystem. Let's use this diagram as an example. So as you can see, at the bottom of this energy pyramid are plants, which are known to be the producers. The plants are then eaten by insects, which are known as primary consumers. Then the insects are eaten by frogs, which are secondary consumers. And lastly, the frogs are eaten by hawks, which are tertiary consumers. So as the levels increase from plants to insects to frogs to hawks, that is the direction in which energy is being transferred from one organism to the next. To further explain, the plants are at the base of the pyramid. They contain the most energy. So when the insects eat the plants, energy is being transferred from plants to insects. However, only 10% of the energy is being transferred, while the other 90% of energy has been lost either through heat loss or was undigested. If the plants were to obtain 10,000 kilocalories, measurements of units in energy, then the insects would only obtain 1,000 kilocalories from eating the plant. So as you keep moving up the energy pyramid, energy will be 90% lost. Once the frogs eat the insects, then they will only consume 100 kilocalories. Then when the hawk eats the frogs, they will only consume 10 kilocalories.
Source of energy because of the food it produces, but you're wrong. You were correct about El Sol being the main source of energy, but it's not El Sol, it's the sun. As you can see, the sun is circling the tree, giving off energy for the next feeding level to get its food source.
So now that the sun has transported energy to the plant, the giraffe will be eating from the plant, receiving 10% of energy as well. Oh no, it's the king of the jungle! Giraffe, watch out! Oh no, now that the giraffe has been eaten by the lion, the giraffe will transfer 10% of its energy to the lion. Oh, look how that lion eats that energy. Yummy!
Biomass pyramids show basically how much matter, which is space that any type of organism takes up, there is in a certain place. It is shown by the trophic levels, which are like Legos. The blocks at the bottom hold up the ones at the top. The space that the organisms take up can be compared to video games. We usually buy lots of video games that we don't even play. Sometimes we throw away those games and then end up with less because they get boring and we don't like them anymore. For example, the producer level would probably have 1,000 games. Then as you get higher up the pyramid, the space the video games take up get lower. So at the second level you would maybe have 700 games. Then when you reach the third level you would have 400 games. All these games take up space, so then your room would have less games and a lot more space. At the highest level, the top consumer, you would have the lowest number of games, which would be about 10 video games. At this point you have much more space for different things like playing with cars. This is basically what a biomass pyramid is, seeing how much space any organisms take up in certain levels.
The pyramid of numbers shows the number of each individual at each feeding level, known as trophic level. For example, the producers, the plants, get their energy from one of the main sources in Earth, the sun. They have the most energy because they produce their own food and will be more in numbers, here being 5 million, which is how much there is on that individual. The smaller animals like rabbits and mice, who are also known as primary consumers, eat these plants and get the energy, which will only be 10% because not all energy is being transferred. The bigger animals like coyotes or snakes, which are also known as secondary consumers, eat the smaller ones they get and only get 10% of the small portion from the lower level of animals, here being from 500,000 to 5,000. The last consumer, tertiary consumer, being the mountain lion hunts for food, will get less energy, but since it is for the top level apex, which are also known as the top consumers, it will only be one individual that needs the energy instead of many. That being the difference between the lower levels and the top levels. Basically, a large number of plants provide enough energy for a small number of consumers.
Explain how to calculate. If each level in the food chain typically loses 90% of the energy it takes in, and the producer level uses 1,000 kilocalories of energy, how much of that energy is left after the third trophic level? The first trophic level uses 1,000 kilocalories, and the second trophic level uses 100 kilocalories, and the third trophic level uses 10 kilocalories, leaving 1 kilocalorie as a leftover. Let's explain this using candy. What may candy be the equivalent as energy or kilocalories? Let's say you have 1,000 pieces of candy and your friend, who we'll call Alex, has none. You then give him 10% of your candy, which is 100 pieces. Later, Alex meets one of his friends, who we'll name Jessie, and then gives her 10% of his candy. Shares these 10 candies. Maybe Jessie meets someone else named Raul and gives him 10% of her candy, which is 1 piece of candy. Your first trophic level always has the highest amount of energy, and as you go higher up the levels, the less energy you have. The difference is always 10% of the original amount.